Hey guys, welcome back to our second session of Introduction to Linux OS. My name is Kevin Downs and I'm happy to be instructing you again. So in the second session here, we're going to go over basic user commands. Before we do that, let's go ahead and recap some of the things we learned in our first session. First things we went over was Introduction to Unix, Design Philosophy, System Components, the Shell and Command Entry, and then Installation and Setup. In this session, we're going to go over basic user commands, logging in and logging out, command line editing, navigating the file system, viewing and copying files, and lastly, controlling the terminal. Let's go ahead and hop right in here. First thing we're going to go over is logging in and logging out of our Ubuntu machine on VirtualBox. So when you first start up Ubuntu, after installing it, you should see a login screen that looks like this. Let me go ahead and pull up my machine here. So you'll see here, I have my machine booted up. I have my username here. And if I click on that, it's going to open a text box. It's going to have me input my password. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll hit enter, and it's going to log me into that machine. So that's how you log into your machine. Let's go ahead and talk about logging out of our machine. So once the machine boots up, you're going to see some options here. You'll see log out, suspend, and power off. Log out will actually log you out of the machine. Suspend is going to put your machine to sleep or hibernate it. And power off is going to actually turn off your machine. So keep in mind, if you click that button, it's going to turn off the whole machine, and if you want to use it again, you're actually going to have to boot it back up. So let's go ahead and check those options out. So you see here, the desktop's loaded up. I'll go to the top right corner here. You'll see a little tree icon, speaker, battery, and a little down arrow. We're going to click that button. And on here, you're going to see power off and log out. We're going to click on that, and then we'll see our options below. Log out, suspend, and power off. We're going to go ahead and click log out and log out of our machine. We're going to see another menu. It's going to ask us to confirm that we want to log out. I'll go ahead and click log out. And there you go. We're back to our screen here asking us to log into a user. Let's go ahead and talk about navigating the file system. So Linux file system will be unfamiliar to Windows users, but Mac users may recognize it. Look around using the built-in file manager to kind of familiarize yourself with the structure. How it kind of works is the files are held in a tree structure with a root denoted by the path /. Each directory under will be preceded with a / and followed by a / to denote the beginning of the next directory. So let's go ahead and check that out on our VirtualBox here. So you see here, I went ahead and typed in pwd, if you remember from our last session, to show where I'm at currently. So you'll see a /home/Kevin, okay? So that first slash here denotes the very root or beginning of all these files and directories. And then next you'll see home, okay? And then you'll see another slash, okay? So this slash here is saying this is the root or beginning of Kevin, okay? But it is the end of the home directory. Okay, let's go back to our PowerPoint here. Keep in mind that all files and commands in Linux are case sensitive. So if you type in a command or directory, lowercase when it should be uppercase, it's not going to recognize that command or directory or file. So keep that in mind and be very careful when you're typing things in. Directories are separated in path using the / character or the root. Okay, don't confuse this root with the root user, okay? This is simply just stating that this is the beginning, okay? There's different types of files. You have ordinary files, which can contain text files, data files, command text files or scripts, and executable files. You also have directories, and then you're going to have links. Links are used because rather than having multiple copies of a file, Linux uses linking to one file to save disk space, okay? So I can have a file in one location and I can link it to a file in another location, and this way I don't have to actually create another file elsewhere. It will just link back to that original location. Typically there's going to be two types of links. There's going to be a hard link and soft link. However, we're not going to focus on that right now. That's not something we need to worry about. This slide here just gives a different visual representation of how it works. So see here we have the root of this file system, or /, and then underneath of that we can have different files or directories. So bin, dev, etc or etc, home, tmp or temp, and usr. Don't confuse this as user. This actually stands for Unix Shared Resources. Okay? And then underneath that we can have more files or directories. So if we were to look at this in the actual machine, you would actually see a slash in between maybe home and Patrick. So it would look like /home/Patrick/school. Okay? Linux is fundamentally a multi-user system. There's going to be multiple people using a Linux system. Every user on a Linux system is given a sectioned off part of the file system that belongs to them, their home, if you will. For a user named Tom, their home directory exists as /home/Tom. Okay? Whenever a little squiggly sign here appears, this is called a tilde. At the beginning of the file's path, this is shorthand for my home directory. Okay? So when Tom uses the tilde, it means /home/Tom, or if Fred uses the tilde sign, it means /home/Fred. Okay? So let me go ahead and demo that for you real quick. So we can see here I got my terminal pulled up here. Okay? So if I do pwd to show where I'm at right now, you see /home/Kevin. Okay? And if I were to navigate somewhere else, /desktop, okay, you can see I'm in a different location here, /home/Kevin/desktop. If I were to just type in cd and that squiggly sign or tilde, it's going to take me back to /home/Kevin. Okay, just to prove that to you, I'll type in pwd again, and you can see it takes me back to /home/Kevin. Okay, so that's just a shorthand way of typing out your home directory, and so that you don't have to type everything out. Let's go back to our PowerPoint here. So during this course, you're going to be using the terminal emulator to do a lot of your work. Okay? On your desktop, to pull up the terminal emulator, you're going to right-click and use the Open in Terminal option. Or, if you want, you can just type Control-Alt-T to open one at any time. Okay? The window opens is called a terminal emulator. It behaves like the terminal that exists underneath the graphical interface or Ubuntu. Okay? Keep in mind this is not the true command line or terminal, it's just an emulator. So if I go to my desktop here, you see me do it a couple times. I'm going to show you one more time in case you didn't catch it. So I'm on my desktop here. I'm right-clicking on my mouse. This option opens up and I click Open in Terminal, and it's opening up that emulator for you. Okay, and from here we can start typing in commands and using the emulator. Alright, let's go ahead and go over some basic user commands here. You'll see here we have a list of common commands listed. First one's going to be echo. This will display our print text to the screen. We have exit, which will close the terminal. Clear, which will clear all text in the terminal. Make directory, or mkdir, make a new directory. rm, or remove, which will remove and delete a file. mv, or move, which moves files. cp, or copy, which copies files. ps, which will list all active user programs and display a PID, or PID, which is a process identification number. We have top, which shows an interactive list of current processes running. We have kill, which will kill or stop the process with a listed PID number. And then we have man or manual, which will display the manual for the listed command. We also have cat, which will display the contents of file, also used to combine or concatenate multiple files. And you'll see here in this word concatenate, that's where cat comes from, C-A-T. Okay? And then next we have vim, which will open a file terminal-based text editor. Okay? Vim stands for VI improved. And then the last one we have is chmod. Okay? And this will change or set permissions to a file defined by the flag that you give it. And we'll go in later discussion in later sessions about permissions and files and all that. Okay? Let's go ahead and demo some of these commands here. So we're going to open our VirtualBox. Go and open it with me. And first one here, we're just going to test out echo. So to use the echo command, we do ECHO. Oops. There we go. ECHO space, double quotation mark. Now I'm just going to type in hello, and then end it with double quotation mark. Now hit enter, and you see that it just prints out the text to the screen, okay? So anything you put inside of these double quotation marks, it's going to print out to our screen here, which can be helpful for putting things into files. Next is exit, so EXIT. This will close our terminal. Go ahead and open the terminal back up. And the next one we have here is clear. So if you have a lot of commands on the screen, you want to free up some space, and just type in random stuff here so we can get some space on our screen. So if I type the clear command, it's going to clear our screen and give us some space back. Okay. Another helpful thing we can do, kind of a shorthand version of that, is I can do Control-L, and it'll also clear the screen for us. Next we have is mkdir, or make directory. So I'm going to show you here. I'm going to do an ls, and you'll see all of our directories here listed in blue. Okay, so I'm going to do a mkdir, and then space, and then testdir. So I'm going to make a directory called test directory. I'll do that, and I'm going to do another ls, and you'll see now that I have a directory called test directory here. Okay. So the next one we have here is remove. Okay, so we can remove files. So I'm going to create a file real quick called test. Okay, I'm going to remove that file. So let me go ahead and do an ls. You see there, test file is created here. So I'm going to remove it now. So rm space test. And you'll see that that test file is gone now. Okay, let me go ahead and clear the screen. Alright, next command is going to be move. So let me go ahead and list our files here. I'm going to make a test file again. So you see test file there. And what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to move this test file into testdir. Okay? So you do mv, and then you're going to type in the file that you'd like to move, which is going to be test. And then you're going to type in the location you'd like it to move to, testdir. Oops. There we go, testdir. You'll notice here that it's preceded by a slash because we're actually going to put this file underneath of testdir. Okay, so I'll do that. We're going to go ahead and change directory cd to testdir just so we can see that that file got moved there. Do an ls to list the files in this directory, and you'll see that test was moved there. Now if we go back one, cd dot dot, you'll notice that test is no longer in the previous directory, so it did actually move the file. This is also a handy way to rename the file. Okay, so if I do cd testdir again, we'll see we have test there, and I want to rename that file. I can do mv, the file you want to rename, test. I'm just going to name it test2. Okay, I'll do an ls, and you actually see that the file is renamed now. Okay. So move is helpful if you want to move a file to a different location, or if you'd like to rename a file. All that's doing is it's just telling the system that this file resides in a different location now, or that has a different name now. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back here. Let me clear my screen. Next command we have is cp. Okay, so I'm going to make another file. I'm just going to call it test. So you see now we have that test file here. I'm going to copy test, so we do cp space, the file we want to copy, and where we want to copy it to. So I'm going to do testdir, again that slash because we want to put it underneath there. I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to change directory cd to test directory. Okay, I'm going to do an ls, and you'll see that test2 is now, or I'm sorry, test is now in that directory. Now if I go back a directory, you also see that test is also still inside of this previous directory, okay? So the copy command is actually creating another copy of the file. It's going to exist in its original location as well as the new location it's in. So the ps command, when we run that, we can see here it shows all the current processes running. All right. In this case, I just have the bash process running, which is this terminal. And then we also have the ps command, which is the command that we just ran. Okay. Another interactive way of listing processes running is the top command. So you see here on top, it has a live feed of all the processes running. Okay, so this is a real-time look at how your system is running. All right. So this is useful if you want to see what things are taking up CPU or RAM and things like that. To get out of this, we just hit Q for quit. You notice when I do that though, that the top command is still displaying it. It's just not real time anymore. So we're going to go ahead and clear our screen to get rid of that. Next command would be kill. So K-I-L-L. And then you would type in the process ID. All right, let's go ahead and do an example of that. I'm just going to run a process here. Sleep 60. I'm going to put that in the background. Okay. I'm going to do PS to list the processes running. And now you'll see that sleep command there, okay? So in this first column is where it shows the process ID of columns, or processes. That second column is the terminal it's running on. And then in the last column here, it tells you the command. So I'm going to do kill. And then the process ID, 3224 of sleep. And then it kills the command, okay? Next command we have is man, or manual pages. So I can do man kill. And you'll see it actually brings up a really helpful manual page for this command kill. On here you can find tons of info on it. If you want to scroll down on there, you can use your arrow pads and it'll scroll one line at a time, or if you want to scroll a whole page at a time, you hit your space bar. Okay? Another helpful thing to use in here is if you use the / button. Let me actually move my screen up here so you can see. So you see I do a / and I can actually type in words and it'll search the document for me. Okay, so maybe I do example, and remember everything is case sensitive in Linux, so I do capital E. It says pattern not found. Let's see if I can do lowercase. There we go. Now it brings up examples here. So examples of how to use this command. Okay, and again, to get out of this, we just type Q for quit. Alright, next command we have here, it's going to be cat. So if I do cat, actually let's look at our files here. So I have test, let me put some words in there. Oh, I need to do echo. There we go. Okay, let me clear my screen real quick. Alright, so we have our files here. I'm going to see what's inside of this test file here. Okay, so I'm going to cat it, C-A-T space T-E-S-T. And you'll see there it just says words. So that's all that's contained in this file right now. Okay. Next command we have is vim. And this is how you actually open files and edit them. Okay. So unlike in Microsoft where you can just click on a file and go to maybe Word or Excel and start editing them, in Linux we have to use vim. Okay. So to use vim, we do vim, and then I go to the file, T-E-S-T, the file I want to edit, and I hit enter, okay? Now for some of you, when you try this, it might not work. Instead, you might have to just use VI because it might not be installed on your machine yet. So let me go ahead and do that. So just do VI. If vim doesn't work, do VI in that file you want to edit. So you can see it's very similar. Vim just has some more functions to it, okay? So to exit out of this, you're going to hit escape. So put you into command mode, and then you'll do colon. Let me move my screen up here so you can see. So do escape, colon, and you can do Q for quit. Okay? And it'll take you out of that program. The last one we have here is chmod, C-H-M-O-D. Okay? And then in here you can do different permissions on files. So we'll use just an example, maybe user plus, and I want to give it execute permission, so plus execute, and I'm going to do that on the test file. Okay, now we'll change permissions on it. For right now, don't worry too much about permissions. We're going to go into much more detail later about how to use this command as well as others, but I did want to demo it for you real quick. Let's go and go back to our PowerPoint here. Alright, so the terminal holds a history of all commands that are used in the current session or the instance of the terminal. You can look back and forth in this history using the up and down arrow keys. Similarly, you can move your cursor back and forth in your current line using the left and right arrow keys. If your cursor is overlapping a character, typing will put the new character immediately before the overlapped one. Okay? So if we look at this table here, it just kind of summarizes that. So I can hit the up arrow or Control P, which will recall the previously used command. I can hit the down arrow or Control N, and it recalls the next command. I can hit left arrow or Control B to move left on my line. I can use the right arrow or Control F to move forward on the line. I can click the home button or Control A, which will move the cursor to the beginning of the line. Or I can hit Control E or N, which will move my cursor to the end of the line. So let me go ahead and pull my virtual box here again. Show you a quick example of that. So this is actually really handy and will save you a lot of time when you're messing with these commands. So let's say I have a really long line of things, okay? And I don't want to use my arrow keys to go all the way back. I can press left on my arrow key and it will go one line at a time. Or I can press right and it will go right to one at a time. Or I can do Control A and it takes me all the way back to that line. Similarly, I can do Control E and it takes me all the way to the end of that line. So that's much quicker than trying to arrow left or right on it, okay? So if I press S up on my arrow pad, you'll see it brings up that last command I used, which was chmod u+x test. If I press down, you'll see it brings back up my command that I just tried to type in. Now, this isn't actually command, obviously. This is just me typing in some example stuff. Okay? Let's go and go back to our PowerPoint. So, command you guys have seen me use a lot is the list command, or ls. So to list the files and directories stored in the current directory, use the following command, ls. But this command also supports an ls-l option, okay? Anytime you see a -l or a dash something, that's a flag on a command. So flags alter how the command actually sends its output to you. And the flags add a lot of functionality and a lot of options to what you can do with the commands. So I'm going to go back to my terminal here. Oops. So I can do an ls-l, which stands for long listing. You'll see it lists a lot more info as opposed to just doing ls, okay? I can also do a shorthand version of that, ll, and it'll list everything as well, okay? So when I do an ls-l, what's usually listing here is info about the file. So in this first column, we have the permissions. In the second column, we have the user owner of the file. In the third column, or the fourth column, we have the group owner of the file. In this fifth one, we have the size of the file in bytes. In the next column here, we have when it was last edited. And then the final column actually shows the name of the file. Okay? So on this next slide, we're going to talk about meta characters. Meta characters have a special meaning in Unix. For example, the star sign and the question mark are meta characters. So we have an example of it here. We have ls space ch star dot doc. This will display all the files, the names of which start with ch and end with the .doc. So depending on where that star is, depends on how that's going to search for it. Okay. So let's show a quick example of that. So I'm going to list the files I have here. Let's say I do an ls, and I do a star, and everything that's, let's say, ends with an s. So documents, downloads, pictures, templates, and videos, okay? Just going to clear our screen, do an ls. So let's say I want to find everything that actually starts with a capital D. So I'll do ls, capital D, and star. And again, it'll display desktop, documents, downloads, okay? So depending on where that star is, depends on how it does that output. Anything before the star means everything that starts with that. Anything behind the star means anything that ends with that, okay? So that's very helpful when you're trying to find something or trying to filter your results. You can also use that for creating different files within other files, but don't worry too much right now about meta characters. Just understand that they do exist and that they can be very helpful. Alright, as far as creating files go, you can use the touch command, which you guys saw me use. This creates an empty file with a given name. For example, I can do touch file name and it'll create an empty file named file name. You can also use the Vim editor to edit text files in any Unix system. So if I were to use Vim and then a file name and that file didn't already exist, it would open a file for me and it would be empty and I can start editing it, okay? However, if I just use touch, it's just going to create that empty file and it won't start editing it. Alright, copying files. To make a copy of a file, use the cp command. The basic syntax of the command is copy, source file, and destination file. Okay, so we saw an example of that earlier. So let's say if we do a copy file name to copy file, it's going to copy the file name to copy file. And as we discussed earlier, the move command actually renames files. So to change the name of a file, use the move command. And the following is the basic syntax. So you do mv move space old file space new file. So you're putting the file you want to rename and then the location or what you want to rename it to following that. So if we do an mv space file name slash space new file, it's going to take file name, the file name, and it's going to rename it new file, okay? Or it'll move it to the new file location. Alright, let's talk about controlling the terminal. So while the terminal program is running, you can send it various signals using the keyboard. Some example of this is Control-C, which is signal interrupt, or the interrupt signal. Usually this causes the program to abort, but may simply stop some programs. There's also Control-Z, which is signal stop or suspend signal. Again, this usually causes the program to abort, but may simply stop until they get a signal to resume, like say continue. There's also Control-D, or end of file character, and this is used for when a program wants a full file to input, but you tend to type it in. So let's go ahead and do some quick examples of that. Clear my screen here. So I'm going to do that sleep 60 command again, except this time I'm not going to put it in the background. So you'll see here I don't have control of the screen anymore. I can type things in, I can press LS, I can press top. It's not going to work because that sleep 60 has put the terminal to sleep, okay? So if I want to stop this program, I'll do Control C on my keyboard, and then I get my prompt back, okay? So I'm going to do it again. This time I'm going to do it with Control Z. You see I can't do anything. It's not letting me get control of the terminal. So I do Control Z, and you'll see that it suspends the program and even tells you that the command is stopped there, okay? So if your terminal ever locks up or you have a process that won't free up, you can always try these commands and it'll give you control back. Okay, so in summary, you've learned about basic user commands. We've also seen how to log in and out of your Ubuntu machine. We also learned about terminal emulators, and we have seen how to navigate the file systems. We have also learned about how viewing and copying files are done, and then we have seen how to manipulate the terminal. In our next session, we're going to go over types of editors such as Nano, VI, and Vim, basic editor tasks with Vim. We're also going to look at how to edit multiple files, name buffers, and we're going to look how to start up a Vim file. Guys, if you're struggling with any of these concepts or you need a little bit of extra help, please click on this link. We have weekly and monthly plans available for private tutoring sessions for system administrator management. And we also have some Linux and Bash scripting private tutoring sessions. Thanks so much for joining me. I really hope to see you in the next session. I hope you guys had a little bit of fun being able to actually use some commands in that terminal and see what you can do on the machine.